Quazi here. If you are stuck at a certain income level or a certain money level in your life, you see a certain amount of money come in, but you're only capable for some reason of manifesting only that amount of money, or you're stuck at a certain level in your career or your business and you've been stuck there for a really long time, then this video is for you. Because in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why that happens and why the truth to why you're stuck is it has nothing to do with tactics and strategies. It's actually to do with your identity. How you view yourself is actually keeping you stuck. I came to this realization after talking to so many of my clients and starting to see a common pattern emerging. And one of the most common patterns was when they were kids, there was this scarcity program that ran in the background. How did the scarcity programming happen? Well, when they were kids, they saw their parents struggle, and so they've inherited those struggles. They've seen their parents complain about money and fight about money and how there was never enough money, and this created a negative association within their psyche, which then they absorbed. And now they have become the kind of people for whom it is difficult to make money and there isn't enough money. And because of that, that conditioning has always run in the background. And because of that, they've always needed to work harder. So if you find that you always need to work harder than everyone else to maintain the same level of success or to even just grow a little bit, and you've just stagnated in your career, you've stagnated in your business, and you just can't explain why everything you do keeps having you hit an invisible ceiling, this is why. This is my life's work in trying to figure out what these barriers are, because all of them are unseen, right? They operate underneath the surface. They are subconscious. So today I want to share with you exactly why that happens and how you can overcome it. Okay, so let's get started. Very first thing I want you to understand is what has gotten you here is not necessarily what will get you there. The most successful people in the world, what do? They constantly reinvent themselves. Whenever they grow and reach a certain level, they reinvent themselves. Why haven't you been able to do it? Because this old conditioning, this old identity is so strong. Okay? What is identity? Identity is a set of beliefs that we have formed about ourselves. And most of the time, these beliefs have become very, very strong. They've evolved to the level of conviction. And because they've become so strong, we never think to question them. We only question the beliefs that we can see, but the ones that we truly believe we will never question. And those beliefs are the ones that eventually determine our fate and our destiny. Okay? So for most people, they think what has gotten them here is what will get them there. So they keep searching for past reference experiences. Oh, what did I do in the past? How did I handle this in the past? While that is great, you just have to understand that not all of it will apply. Okay? So why do I say this? Why is this important to know? Because for a lot of people, they have achieved success. Maybe you are a moderately successful professional. You know, you've made it to a certain level in your career. You've made it to a certain level in your business, and you've been stuck there for a really long time. But you've made it to this level through survival conditioning. You've always fought. Everything was always a battle. Everything was always a fight. And that fight has gotten you here. However, this fight has now become too strong. Okay? The enemy has just become too strong. The wall has become too strong. The resistance has become too strong. Now what's necessary is to operate from a new paradigm where it's effortless and there is ease, where things happen for you because you allow them to happen for you. Right? So a lot of people get stuck in this masculine energy of fight, 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 battle, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. They're not receptive. Whereas you see some other people, they effortlessly manifest success. You know, they just somehow grow in their careers and all of these opportunities come their way. Why does this happen? Because they are receptive to these opportunities. They allow themselves to have it, right? There is this organ in your brain called the reticular activating system. That's your filtering mechanism. For people who are receptive to those opportunities, they have stepped into their higher selves or their 2.0 selves, the version that effortlessly achieves what they want to achieve. Do you know how that RAS works for them? That RAS filters for opportunities that will lead them there because they say to themselves, I allow myself to achieve this income, to make this income, to make this amount of money. Because they have that internal dialogue and that story, and they truly believe that they're entitled to success, they start noticing opportunities that will get them there. I've seen so many people get knocked down. People like that get knocked down and quickly pick themselves back up. Why? Because they have this attitude, right? Because they have this self-conviction, how they view themselves. So your self-image and your identity determines your destiny. You will never out-earn your self-image. You will never out-earn your identity and who you believe yourself to be, okay? So for most people, biggest issue, childhood conditioning. They have a relationship to that childhood conditioning. They say, okay, is this true or is this not true? Well, I have feedback from my childhood that this is true. Therefore, I am the kind of person for whom making money is very, very difficult. That becomes embedded as an identity. And so they believe I need to work extra hard to get to the same level that other people have gotten to. And that's why you feel burnt out in your career or your business. You feel like there isn't a path forward. You feel a lack of fulfillment. You wake up every single morning and you're like, what the hell? Like, why am I doing this? I hate this. And it just feels like a struggle every single day. And you can't find a way out. Why can't you find a way out? Because who you are and how you view yourself is not conducive to that life path you want to move towards. Okay? The version of you that you're embodying is not conducive to that. Therefore, what needs to happen is you need to reinvent yourself. So how do we do that? Before I get to how to do this, we're going to get into the identity reprogramming cycle, or the self-reprogramming cycle. And before I get to that, I want to give you some examples, two of the most prominent examples of entrepreneurs who've actually done this for themselves. If you look at Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, from his own company. Then he came back as a new man and he took it to the next level. Oprah did the same thing. Oprah reinvented herself, and as soon as she reinvented herself, she shot up. And you may have lived long enough to have experienced this firsthand, right? So all of these people, every single successful person you see, they have all been able to somehow reinvent themselves, recreate themselves to step into a new version of themselves. So right now, if you feel like you are stagnant somewhere in your life, whether this be your income, your business, your love life, your health, whatever it is, it's time to reinvent yourself. It's time to ditch the old and step into a new version of yourself. It's a new chapter of your life. Stop trying to go back to the old chapter and reliving past memories. Let those go and step into this new version of yourself. So now let's talk about how to actually do that. But before I get to that, the key thing I want you to remember, the key thing is you want to shift your identity consciously. That is the key word. Shift your identity consciously. Why do I say consciously? Because who you are being right now, a large percentage of it has been unconsciously crafted. Think about it. The experiences that you've collected, you didn't choose to view yourself this way. You were just given it, and it made you feel safe. Aha! It makes you feel safe to believe that you're not worthy. Why does it make you feel safe? Well, then you don't have to go out and take risk. Well, I'm not worthy. Why would I try this anyway? Why would I put myself in a tough situation anyway? So many people are living so deep in their comfort zones. They're afraid to branch out. So many people that I speak to, they're so terrified of stepping out of their comfort zones. But as soon as they do you know what happens? Everything that they've ever wanted becomes manifest. Because what's outside of your zone of comfort? It's that version of you that you're not used to embodying, that you're not used to being. It's the version of you that you want to be. One of my clients, Eldred, at 65, he took scuba diving. He never took scuba diving in his life before. He was terrified of the water. And he would always have this recurring nightmare. His recurring nightmare was that he failed his quantum physics course in college, right? And as soon as he took this scuba diving lesson, not only did he overcome his fear, now he's become a completely new man. Now he is completely transitioning his business. He's a doctor, and now he's transitioning online, and he's really moving forward with his life. He has a renewed sense of clarity, a renewed sense of purpose. At 65, Eldred has become a completely new person, a completely different person. This is the power of what can happen in your life if you simply operate out of the zone of your comfort and allow yourself to step into a different version of you that you've been used to, okay? It's obviously not easy, and that's why 99% of people never experience a transformation. But it is very simple, okay? So I want to show you how to completely get rid of this old programming and reprogram yourself in a new way to step into this new version of yourself. Before we do that, we need to understand the mechanics of how we have been programmed, like how this programming process actually happens. So the very first thing that we're all encountered with is there is an event. There is a defining event that happens. So that event in this instance might be that you've watched your parents bicker and fight about money growing up, right? And there was never enough. Maybe, like me, you grew up in an immigrant household. I grew up in an immigrant household and I saw my dad was super stingy with money. He was terrified of losing money and he would always hoard money and there was never enough. And he would always complain about spending money and we would never be able to take the nice vacations or buy the nice things, even though he had plenty of money, by the way. He had more than enough. He just was afraid to spend because he was traumatized by his father, who spent a little bit too much and they weren't able to feed their family. You know, he just was a bad businessman, my grandpa. Great dude, bad businessman, okay? So event happens, so that event happened, and so how did I relate to that event? What was my perception of that event? So my perception, it was an immediate reaction, right? It's a reaction perception. How this happens unconsciously is there is a reaction perception. We accept the lowest energy, lowest effort story, or the lowest effort meaning. So my perception was, oh, okay, there isn't enough money out there. My dad and my mom are always fighting about money. They're always struggling around the issue of money. Therefore, I conclude that there isn't enough money out there. That becomes my belief. This perception becomes a belief. With enough of this, I start to notice, so now this becomes my worldview, right? So now I view this world as, okay, there isn't enough money in this world. People need to work extra, extra hard. So now that I actually start to believe it, what happens? My reticular activating system gets primed with this. It gets primed to notice more opportunity, more instances of where there isn't enough money, right? So maybe I start to notice a little bit more my friends struggling, or I notice other people struggling, just to confirm this worldview. Because what does the ego want? More than anything, the ego wants to be right, because it believes that if it's right, it can protect itself from death. So the ego will strive at all costs to prove that it is right, okay? So with enough belief, it evolves to a conviction. So you begin to believe there isn't enough money in this world, and I need to work, I'm the kind of person who needs to work extra hard to make money. So there is the worldview, there isn't enough money in this world, and then from the worldview, we form a self-view of, okay, I need to work extra hard to make money because there isn't enough money around. How many times has it happened when you've watched the news and you've actually believed the news and then you believe that you need to do something to overcome this, or like, you know, the economy is terrible right now, so I need to work extra hard to make money, I need to protect my money, and it's put you in this state of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Why does that happen? Because of this cycle. There's an event, there's a perception, there's a belief that you form. And then that evolves to the level of conviction. So then you begin to believe that, okay, I'm not good enough to make money. Somehow I'm not good enough to make money, because the harder you work with this worldview, the more you start to see that I need to keep working harder to make money. So then you believe that I'm the kind of person who needs to work extra, extra hard to make money. Okay? I'm not good enough to attract money. Somewhere along the way, you direct it back to yourself and you form this self-view. You go from worldview, your worldview determines your self-view. We do this all the time, right? We look at the world to see how we should feel within. When someone tells us we're not good enough for something, we're quick to believe it. Like, oh, you know, I'm not good enough to make money. For me, I always believed that for me to become wealthy, I would either need to be born into a wealthy family, or I would need to be incredibly lucky, or I would need to know someone. Those are the three beliefs I had. I wasn't naturally talented enough to be those business owners, or I didn't have enough luck. So you see, my model of the world, my worldview that was influenced by my parents, or my mom, my dad especially, was there isn't enough money out there, only a select few are chosen for that. And I wasn't special. I'm not special, right? I'm no one special, I wasn't chosen for that, so therefore I will not be able to do it. I don't have the capability. Genetically, I haven't been given the capability. There was no one in my family who was a successful business owner. Heck, I don't even have the gene. I didn't study business in college, so there's just no way I'd be a successful business owner. It just wouldn't work. So this conviction then influences future events or the reality that you experience. Could you do me a favor and let me know what your biggest takeaway was from this cycle and everything we just talked about? I'd love to know what you're thinking. Okay, so just let me know in the comments what stood out to you the most, if anything. It helps me make better content for you and to understand you, because I'm just speaking to a camera right now, but I want to feel like I'm actually speaking to you and your problems, and that's how we're trying to pivot. I'm trying to reinvent myself to pivot more to creating content that is relevant, that will actually get you transformation, because we're seeing amazing transformations with our actual clients, and I would love to be able to replicate that for you, for those who are watching. Okay, so just let me know in the comments what's going through your head, what your takeaways are, anything that's going through your mind. So this is the cycle through which everything operates. However, there is a way in which we can flip this cycle. There's a way in which we can flip this cycle to change our destiny. Before we get to that though, I want to give you a few steps to do this. A few steps to shift your perception consciously. Because when you shift your perception of the world and you shift your perception of yourself, what happens? You've effectively shifted your identity. So there's two types of people in this world. One type of person looks at the world and says, oh, okay, everything's struggling, everyone's struggling, therefore I will struggle. I'm the kind of person who falls in with the masses and I will struggle. There's the second kind of person who says, oh, looks like we are in a tough economic time right now. But what is the opportunity here? How can I capitalize on this? If markets are going down, smart traders short the market, right? So how can I short it and still become successful in this? There is always an opportunity. The greatest companies have come out of what? A recession. Uber, Microsoft, Apple, all of these companies came out of a recession. So if some of the greatest companies have come out of a recession, how can I capitalize on this to become the wealthiest, the most successful I can be? There is always an opportunity. And if your perception is that, guess what happens to your reticular activating system? It opens up for opportunity. It starts to notice different opportunity that are out there already. So in order to change your self-image using this cycle, there's three main steps. Okay? There's three main steps. This cycle influences how you form your self-image. So let's talk about an example of what this looks like, because I know it can get a little bit esoteric, so I want to give you a concrete example of someone who's formed their self-belief, how they view themselves, and derived it from their worldview. So, event happens, they see their parents fighting about money all the time and how there isn't enough money. They start to perceive it as, oh, okay, look, there isn't enough money, money is scarce, money is limited. Then they start to believe, okay, there truly isn't enough money, therefore I must work harder to make money and I must hold on to it. Then somewhere along the way, it evolves to the level of conviction of, I'm not good enough to make more money. I'm not like that, because my whole life, right, throughout the years, I had to keep working hard to make this amount of money. So I need to put this much effort. I need to work 60, 80 hours a week to make this much money. If I want to make more money, I have to work harder. Right? That's the paradigm. That's their worldview and their self-view. And then that becomes their reality. So what's the contrary to this? Well, hard work isn't bad, but what if instead of trying to find a different career or trying to get a promotion or picking up extra shifts at work, this person just shifted that belief to, hey, I could just start a business and work hard in my business to make income where I have an uncapped revenue potential, and then eventually hire people out to do the things that I don't want to do in the business so I can sit back and do the things that I do like to do. Well, that's exactly what was possible for me. See, I was that first person back in 2019. I was, in a full-time corporate engineering job, and I absolutely hated it, but I believed that there was no other way. How else would I be able to make money and take care of myself and have security? So I need to do this job that I absolutely hate, where all of my colleagues were trying to stick their arms in the machines to get workers' comp. And I felt miserable every single day. I woke up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., doing my morning routine, then be at work by 6:30, 6:45, 7 a.m. the shift starts, and then 7 to 3 work in this miserable shift 5 days a week. Sometimes on the weekends you would have to come in as well. So, I felt like I couldn't do this for the next 40 years of my life. So then I looked at what I wanted instead. If I wanted to be someone, I always wanted to make money from my laptop because I'd seen some of my friends do it. So I was like, if I wanted to become the kind of person who makes 20K a month from their laptop, how would I be? How would I shift this perception? Well, now my perception shifts from becoming a reaction perception to a response perception. So all of the events that happen, instead of you reacting to it, you become responsive to it. You don't give it the same meaning that you did before. So, example, as a child, I would have looked at instances of there not being enough money and my parents telling me there isn't enough money, you need to work super hard to make money and make sure you don't spend it on stupid shit. Always protect it. Live in protection mode. I would take that at face value. There would be no discrimination. I wouldn't question if it's true or not, the validity of that belief. I would never question it, because when you're a kid, you look up to your parents as your heroes, right? So you accept everything that they've told you, and it starts to ingrain itself deep, deep within your psyche, and it begins to dictate the rest of your life. And that's why Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will always run your life and you will always call it fate, right? So what are the 3 steps that we can use to shift to that response perception and actually change our destiny and shift our identity? Well, step number 1 is you need to create a new identity. What does this mean and what are the conditions? Okay, well, if I were to create a new identity, I could go from believing that I need to work super hard to make money or grow my career to money flows into my life with ease. That was one of my affirmations that I used when I started. Money flows effortlessly into my life and with ease. Now, however, the key to this, and I learned this from this book, Psycho-Cybernetics, and in this book, what Maxwell Maltz says is, your self-image must be a reasonable approximation of you, being neither more than you are nor less than you are. Okay? So you will never accept something that is way too high. If you try to tell yourself, I'm a billionaire version of myself, you'll just scoff. Your mind will immediately come and be like, this is not true. And it will never accept it. So the mind needs to accept the suggestion. So if you begin to say, okay, there is a reasonable amount of money flowing into my life. There are good things that have happened to me in the past. Let's start there. So you create an identity statement. Create a statement right now. If you were to create a statement about your self-view, your identity, what would that be? If it's regarding money or career progress, how can you make it sound less stressful and more effortless, joyous, and easy? Okay, that's what we want to do. So money flows into my life with ease and I am a money magnet. That's a statement. Now, you don't have to fully believe it, but make sure it's not something that is completely unrealistic too. If you're someone who has been stuck with just losing money and for some reason you can't believe this at all, just write down something that signals forward movement to the reality that you want to experience of where you are abundant and wealthy. That's it. Anything simple that you can accept for now. That's it. We just need a starting point before we evolve this, okay? I went from this to hundreds of thousands of dollars flow into my life with ease, and that's exactly what happens, right? But it's an evolution. But to begin with, you need to lean over the edge without falling off. Don't do something crazy like billions of dollars flow into my account every minute. Well, you're never going to believe that, at least not now. But do something more realistic of, just in general, money flows into my life. Money is always flowing into my life. There is a steady flow of wealth into my life. Okay, let's begin there. Now, the next thing we want to do is look for 5 confirmations. What do I mean by that? So we want to look for 5 different points of proof or confirmation that this is indeed becoming true. that this is indeed somewhat true so that our mind accepts it. So part one to this is finding other people who are in similar situations as you, who have come out of this situation, right? So if you have a friend who has become successful, well, that can become an incredible source of inspiration. So find references. Do you ever notice how you have a lot more conviction to move forward when you see someone maybe who is in a worse situation than you, they transform their lives, and you're like, if that fucking guy can do it, or if that fucking gal can do it, then I can do it too, right? We want those instances. So find some instances of others who have, maybe been in your career. Because here's what the mind does, by the way. It says, oh, that's nice and dandy for that person, but I'm not that person. Well, what if you were? What if you were, at least in essence like that person? What if you could achieve that for yourself? Isn't that an empowering belief? Isn't that the one you want to have? So let's choose what we want to believe instead of being handed down the ones from our parents and our society when we were kids. Okay? So you want to find references of people. The second part to this is finding references from your own life and looking at it as glass half full. You look for proof points from your past of where you had succeeded, of where you had made a change. We're taking the flavor of success, because if you believe you're a winner, then you will act like a winner and you will achieve the things that a winner achieves, which is wins, right? So where in the past, because right now if you're watching this and you've been stuck for a really long time, the reason you are stuck is because of your perception. It's focused on your current state of reality than the reality you want to create. Probably 95% of the time you're focused on how miserable it is to be stuck, how much it sucks, and how you've tried everything and nothing has worked. You're at your wit's end and you've been stuck at the same income level, same career for so long, same business for so long, right? And these patterns keep happening over and over again and there is no way out. You feel trapped. And so because of that, your attention is completely hijacked by everything that has happened in the past, that you've been focusing on the past, and all of the negatives, all of the things that you want to get away from, okay? So the third key here is to consciously shift your perception. Consciously shift What do I mean by that? Well, here we have the event and we have our perception of the event. In order to consciously shift our perception of the event, there needs to be a wait or a pause. There needs to be a pause between the event and my response. Up until now, you've just been reacting to it. If something bad happens, you're quick to react to it and say, oh, that's a bad event, that's bad. Something bad will happen in my life. I'll be stuck here like this. I'm not worthy of money, right? That old conversation comes up. I'm not worthy of this. That's why this has happened. That's how you fit it into your worldview. However, this time, what we're doing is we're adding a slight pause and we're evaluating if this is true or not. So in my particular example, when I became a business owner and I shifted out of that scarcity conditioning when I was in my 9-to-5 job, I noticed that whenever something bad would happen, a bad client review or a big bill coming up, I would just shut down. I'd get paralyzed and I would hold on to money. I'd be like, they finally figured it out. I'm a fraud, you know? I started to get a lot of success very, very quickly. And I was like, oh my God, they finally figured it out. I'm a fraud. That's it. It's over. I'm done. Everything's getting shut down. This was just a dream that happened for a short period of time. Now it's time to wake up, because I still couldn't believe it. I still hadn't fully accepted it, right? And so that was a very toxic way to live, but it taught me that this wasn't a sustainable way to live. So it was affecting my self-image because that old conditioning, it still wasn't fully gone, right? That old scarcity paradigm, it still wasn't gone. So instead, what I had to do, the thing that I learned, the biggest epiphany for me was when that event happened, I needed to have a pause before I attached a meaning to that event. And that pause was simply choosing a response perception as opposed to a reaction perception. So to give you an example of that, let's say I got hit with a very big tax bill, or I got hit with, a cease and desist letter or something, or one of the events that actually happened was on my channel, like 30 videos got shut down, right? They got removed. Someone filed a trademark copyright infringement thing. And my channel got 2 strikes, and 3 strikes and your channel gets shut down. And I was getting all of my traffic from my YouTube channel, right? And so because of that, I was just like, oh my God, this is it, I'm done. And I remember I would wake up like in the morning and I would just feel drained because I wasn't able to sleep all night. And by 10 or 11 p.m., before noon, I would just feel exhausted. I'm done with the day. Because I was dealing with lawyers and like, trying to see like how we can get these back up, speaking to the person who filed the copyright infringement, trying to communicate with them at least, and communicating with YouTube. And so I, still was stuck in that old paradigm of, oh my God, I'm gonna lose it all. Everything that I've ever worked for, done. See, I wasn't worthy of this, and that's why I don't have it. All these stories were going on. And so that kept me in this state of perpetual anxiety until I just learned to, every time this thought came up, the event, something happened, I got a response in the email or something, I didn't get a response. I kept checking my email. I took a pause, I took a step back and waited before I responded. I just created some space and I chose my response. This is neither good nor bad, because you can't lie to yourself. You can't say, oh no, this is all good, this is going to be perfect, because your subconscious mind, your psyche won't believe it. The mind will just not accept it. So just be neutral. You don't have to be positive. Before you can be positive, before you can go from negative to positive, you have to be neutral, okay? So the event happens, you're neutral, like, hey, this is just the cost of doing business, which is true. It just happens if you become a successful business owner. It's just one of the things you do. That's an empowering belief. So life goes on. This is neither good nor bad. This doesn't say anything about my self-image. It doesn't have to be a victim story that I make up about myself, about how I'm not good enough. It's okay. This happened. We will make it through this, one day at a time. That's how I made it out of that crisis. And eventually we were able to get the videos reinstated. Even though the traffic on the channel got affected, obviously I was able to build it back up, because it went from 150,000 subscribers to now 890,000. So very grateful for that. You do make it through, right? You do make it through those storms, no matter what you're going through. So the key that I want you to take away from this is response perception. Create that space. This is the space at which your life changes, because this is the entryway until the rest of the events, your belief, your convictions, your reality gets influenced. So stop it right there on its tracks and just have your perception be very, very neutral. Things that you don't like, neutral. Things that you do like, supporting. So for example, if something happened, money flew into my life with ease. Look, I am a successful person. I am this wealthy person. Why? Because the world's most successful people are incredibly biased. They're just looking for what they want. They're incredibly biased, and that's why they achieve success. They're looking for more instances of success. And when something doesn't fit in their worldview, they just ignore it. They just say, this is just an anomaly. This is an exception. The rule is I'm successful and things always go my way. These are all exceptions. Everything else that's happening is an exception, okay? So those are the 3 steps to shifting your identity consciously. Leave me a comment letting me know what you thought of this. If you're someone who's been stuck in your career or your business, let me know. I'd love to communicate with you. I'd make these videos again to a camera. I'd love to hear your thoughts. It gets me going. It gives our team feedback to make better content for you. If you'd like to work one-on-one with me to shift your identity and really take your reality to the next level in 2025, I have some good news. Some spots have opened up on my calendar. All you need to do is go to realitycreator.com/apply to fill up an application. And if you qualify, you'll be able to schedule a call with me to see if we'll be a good fit to work together. And full transparency, we don't work with just anyone. We want to make sure the kind of results we get our clients are amazing results. So we have a very strict qualification process. So it doesn't hurt to apply. So just go ahead and fill up an application and schedule your call. Or you can go to the link in the pinned comments down below. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you. Thanks.